right, guys, I want to welcome everybody out to Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson podcast. We're doing season 2, episode 1 here, and we've got a serious crew from the shop here. I've got Jamie, I've got Andrew, and Nick. And today the topic is going to be adventure touring versus Grand American touring. And obviously something that's happened in recent past years, Harley-Davidson has come out with their Pan America, which is their first entry into the adventure touring world, right? And so I noticed on their website, they have 2 classifications now. They have Grand American Touring, which I've never seen that on their website before, but they're kind of using that tagline and that classification more and more nowadays. And they have their adventure touring section on their website as well. So I thought it would be cool to talk about the differences between Grand American Touring and adventure touring and help people really decide if they're trying to decide, okay, wow, I'm confused here now. Which one do I get? I like to tour, but which one is best for me? Hopefully we can clear up and answer a lot of those questions for you guys today. And, you know, all of us in this room have ridden both. Currently, all of us in this room own adventure touring bikes. And all of us, besides, Nick, own a Grand American Touring chassis, Harley-Davidson as well. And so let's talk a little bit about what really you should look at and focus on when you're trying to decide between the two. And first off, I want to get one kind of out of the way. And I think everybody, when they think about adventure touring, they think about off-road, right? So the capability of going off-road, you have that ability with the adventure touring bikes, but with a heavy Harley-Davidson, as we figured out on our recent Death Valley trip, you get in the sand with a heavy touring chassis bike, and you do not go very far, very quick.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So
unless you're Brandon.
Unless you're Brandon, who he's got incredible skills. Actually, Andrew, I think, went the furthest.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he almost crashed into me. It was great.
Yeah. So there's obviously a little bit of overlap. Obviously, the overlap with the adventure touring bike has a lot more capability of touring than the Grand American Touring bike has capabilities of off-road. But we want to talk a little bit about the overlap and things to kind of look for. So sticking with terrain, let's talk a little bit about terrain and things that you should consider when you're thinking about picking one of these bikes. Let's kick it off with Andrew. Andrew, so you recently bought a Pan America. You've also owned other bikes in the past, a Yamaha Tenere as well.
Super Tenere 2014. Yeah, I mean, having the ability to take your motorcycle a long distance, being able to go to destinations like, let's say, Vegas or Tahoe or Mammoth, and to see a dirt road off of the beaten path and to be able to explore that road is just, it's huge. And to have that ability to do it and be comfortable on a long trip along the way is awesome. Also
talking about terrain as well, I usually tell people when you buy an adventure touring bike, you don't necessarily have to commit to going off-road. Nick, you've basically at this point committed to adventure touring as you own other motorcycles, but I think before the podcast, you were talking about how if you had to just have one bike, it would be the Pan America at this point, right? What's kind of your thought behind that?
I don't really plan to do a whole lot of dirt riding on the bike. Like, I guess the extent of dirt riding I would be doing is probably just like fire road stuff for camping and honestly similar to what we did before. So like the actual overall stuff that I'm going to be doing on the bike probably won't change much from my lowrider. But the nice thing is that the Pan America and a lot of adventure bikes, not just the Pan America, but obviously the Pan America has a lot of advantages, especially for someone of my height, being able to ride it with the adaptive ride height. It just basically means that no matter what someone offers me, like, hey, we're going to go take a trip to Vegas and hit up some of the, desert and go camp out there or something, I can do it. If someone says, hey, we're going to go on a long distance ride to Sturgis and we're not going to touch anything but pavement the entire time, I could do it and I'll be pretty darn comfortable, more comfortable than I would probably even be on my Softail. And so it's, a jack of all trades kind of bike. I think in every single category that it dips its toes into, there's a better bike. But there's no bike that, dips its toes into all of the categories and is better in all of the categories than an adventure bike. So, if you have a buddy who wants to go to a track day, you could go on your Pan America and have a very good time. And you could surprise a lot of, track bikes, especially if you're a capable rider. If you want to go out on a dirt fire road or even something a little more technical, if you've got some decent, dirt chops, you could probably keep up with some bikes and surprise some people. And, if you're just going to go for a long haul ride for a couple of weeks, you'd probably surprise a lot of the baggers out there with how comfortable you were compared to them. And, if you did find a twisty road, you were a good rider, you'd be smoking pretty much anyone who was on a bagger. So the nice thing is it's a Goldilocks bike. You can do pretty much anything on an adventure bike, even if there's a better bike, at the margins of every single category.
That's the beauty of the Pan America, and not only the Pan America, but the adventure bike category is on one day when I went riding, I went to the rock store and was keeping up with majority of the sport bike riders and passing some of them, but being able to do that with full bags. I mean, I'm like 3 lanes wide, dude. Like being able to go out there, rip on that thing, and then later on during the day, I went up to the Santa Monica Mountains. I found a dirt road, and I took that thing up probably a mile or like a few hundred yards into a dirt road that kind of just led into the hills of Santa Monica Mountains. So that same day I was charring up the tires and getting them dirty and riding that same bike back home, and was more comfortable and was able to take everything with me that day. So it's so cool to do something like that on a bike. And like I said, it's the whole adventure bike category, of having a Swiss Army knife of a motorcycle. I think it's really cool. Yeah,
the versatility is amazing. Jamie, so you recently got a 21 model year Road King Special, Deadwood Green, great color, by the way.
Love it.
And you recently just picked up an adventure touring bike as well. Talk a little bit about like your thoughts behind that. Like you have two, like would you have the adventure touring bike and not the Harley? Like what's your thought behind that?
Well, my heart is with my Harley. That Road King has been great, and I absolutely love it. I have it set up great for me, and does almost everything I want it to, except for the off-roading portion, and I've been looking into that category for years now, and I just haven't, I haven't pulled the trigger on one yet, just because I haven't really had a group of people that were, really into it. And this was kind of an opportunity for me to, get into that. So I was quite excited when I found out that you guys, were going to get into it. And then, of course, I was very excited when Harley decided they're building one. That just blew me away. And, they did such a great job. And so, I don't regret the purchase of the Road King by any means. I have no plans of getting rid of it. But, I love riding no matter what it is, 2 wheels. And if I can get off-road, which is, my love is camping and off-roading and, doing things like that.
Moto camping.
Yeah, moto camping. I just love that stuff. So
there's no better bike, I think, to do moto camping on than an adventure touring bike.
Exactly, and that's where that's at. It opens a lot of doors for us.
So you touched on something that we have some topics here that we're going to cover pretty quickly, hopefully. And one of those is like your riding network, Jamie, and you touched on, the rest of us having adventure touring bikes, which was one of those factors that you considered when you bought your adventure touring bike. But let's move on now to performance. And this is one that we had talked in length about before we started the podcast, and that is, on the Pan America, obviously you have a bike that is liquid cooled. It puts out 150 horsepower, which is a lot more power than your typical big twin traditional Milwaukee 8 Harley-Davidson. And so this is definitely one of the several factors that I feel like you should consider when trying to decide between the two. So now obviously we've gotten the off-road aspect out of the way. If you're going to off-road on a bike and you want to do the fire roads, the Jeep trails, things like that, it's an obvious choice that you go with the adventure touring bike, the Pan America, if you want to stick to the Harley brand, right? So let's talk a little bit about performance. I think that there's probably some people that have ridden sport bikes their entire lives. Maybe they don't like a big twin feel or character of the bike, and they just want that high-performing bike that has the lean angle. If they spin that throttle, the thing is going to haul. That would be something that you definitely want to pick the Pan America or adventure touring bike, right? So since you're always big on performance, Nick, why don't you talk a little bit about how that factors into your decision to, you just traded in your Lowrider S, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big move. You got rid of your traditional Milwaukee 8 big twin, and you're now all in on your Pan America, among other bikes you have. You have an MV Agusta as well.
So I've got some broken Italian bikes that I keep around because they're pretty. But like obviously my commuter is always my Harley for a whole host of reasons. Reliability, access to parts, servicing, all that kind of stuff. But performance is definitely something that's like a big deal to me. I think it's a big deal to a lot of riders. But when you're buying a touring bike, you're going to be sacrificing performance, and so I don't view it as the most important category when it comes to touring overall. But for some riders, it's going to be more important than others. I'll have customers come into my office, looking to buy a bike. They've been riding sport bikes forever, and now their mentality is, I want to slow down. I just want to cruise. I just want to go out for a nice Sunday cruise. If that's your mentality, then picking between a Grand American touring bike and a Pan America, it's like the performance side of it's going to be pretty much irrelevant at that point because you're just looking to cruise. But for me, that's not really my mindset. My mindset's still, I want to kind of go fast. I want to have a really agile bike. I want to have a bike with a lot of lean angle. I really like the rev happy nature of, the Rev Max motor. I was actually one of the guys that was disappointed with the 131 when they cut the rev limit back. I mean, the motor makes tons of power and it's amazing power plant, don't get me wrong, but like I liked that the old Stage 4s lost bottom end torque and gained high RPM. I liked that you had a bumped red line. I just thought that was cool and unusual and different for a big twin. And since they've gone in a different direction with the stage kits, I think more customers are going to be happy. But for me, like I'm just still in that phase where I like that revy, rev happy motor. And so, I think that if performance is a really important aspect for you and you're considering the bike, then you're either going to be dumping tons and tons and tons of money to make a performance bagger, because it's just not a cheap endeavor to make that kind of bike fast. I mean, they're awesome and really cool bikes, but for what is essentially 20 grand, depending on how you option it, the Pan Am's going to just eat pretty much any bagger alive on a track or a canyon road.
Just mention the weight too. I mean, you got 300 pounds less weight on the Pan America.
Oh, power to weight. That's everything.
Yeah.
You've got electronic suspension. You've got, I mean, I'm pretty sure that, if Harley just put slicks on the Pan Am, they'd probably beat their factory, 131 race bike. All they had to do was put slicks on it, and they'd probably beat it. So, that doesn't mean the factory race bike isn't cool. And there's definitely also something to be said for actually building up something in a performance way. Like having just a bone stock bike with bone stock everything be really fast is cool and nice and convenient, but some people want to modify their bike. They want to do a Stage 4 kit. They want to get that big lopey cam. They want to hear that stuff. They like that. They like muscle cars. They don't care if they're resto modded, $100,000 Camaro is slower than a brand new C8 Corvette because there's a certain character, charm, look, personality they're going for. And that's just something to consider.
It's taking a performance bagger like that as a whole. It's taking something that's not meant to go fast and making it fast, making it lean harder, go faster, keeping up with your guy in an R6, that's a 900-pound bike, or what it started off as is now leaning and doing a X amount of speed and down the track, which is really cool.
So you're talking about the appeal of building up a Milwaukee 8.
Yeah, as a like performance bagger.
Right,
right.
There's something cool about that in and of itself, making a bike that's not supposed to be like this speed demon and building it up. Yeah, there's something cool about that.
I'd say long story short, though, like if performance is really important to you, Pan Am's probably going to be the direction to go 9 times out of 10.
Absolutely.
Unless you're really into modifying or you really want a big twin or something like that. And it's not as cut and dry as the dirt, component where it's like, if you want to go in the dirt, get the Pan Am.
Yeah.
The performance question's not as cut and dry as that, but it's still pretty cut and dry. Like if you want to go fast, it's hard to not recommend the Pan Am.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah. Let's so we talked a little bit about character. So that's one point for the Pan America. If you really favor and performance is high on your priority list, then the Pan America is really the obvious choice. If going off-road is a high priority, then Pan America is way up there. Let's talk a little bit about character, and Andrew touched on this a little bit about how cool it is to ride a fast big twin as opposed to a fast like sport bike or a fast adventure touring bike. There's something cool about hopping up, an air-cooled push rod V twin, the thump and the character of a traditional Harley-Davidson, right? And so I would definitely argue, and I think we're unanimous in our decision here, that character definitely goes to the big twin bike.
Just a big twin bike just revs your heart differently, man. It's got the sound, it's got the idle, the just overall experience on a big twin, especially riding one stock, with a stock muffler straight from the showroom floor. The first day you throw on a slip-on exhaust, and from that to a Stage 1 all the way to a Stage 4 or whatever you go with, and feeling how the motor takes the modifications and reacts and puts it to the ground is just something really, to me, is really important. Like, you know, starting a stock 107 and then doing a stage 1 and then stage 3 and feeling the difference between the RPM, the grunt, the passing power, the sound, everything like that. I mean,
yeah, if I have a big twin go by me with a big loud exhaust, go by me, 80, 90 miles an hour on the freeway.
Oh, yeah.
Like, to me, it's like, damn, that was awesome.
Yeah,
but I have
absolutely.
a Pan America go by me at 80, 90 miles an hour. It's like, okay, you know, that's
Yeah.
all right, cool.
Yeah,
Cool. That
what
guy
was
goes
that?
fast.
There's a guy
you know?
going to work right there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think personally one of the best sounds to me and is a classic twin cam with a Thunderheader exhaust on it, or an Evo, you know, an Evo motor with a carburetor with a nice Thunderheader at idle. I mean, those two sounds.
Have to agree.
Oh, dude, they sound
You
so
can't
awesome.
beat that character in a
Yeah,
motorcycle.
You can't replace that, dude.
And it translates in the way it rides.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
know, when you're
That's
riding
the
that
feeling,
bike,
yeah.
it gives you that feeling that it, you know, if you haven't done it and you haven't ridden them, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But, you know, and the adventure touring bikes, they give you a rush. You know,
Yeah.
you definitely get that adrenaline rush,
Different.
but you don't quite have whatever that feeling is.
Yeah.
You know, it is different. And
Not the fastest thing. It's not the, you know, it's
Yeah.
not the best performing thing from the fact, but
yeah.
that sound and that feeling, the way it revs and moves your body, moves your soul, dude, is awesome.
Yep.
It's so cool.
Let's talk a little bit about just highway and touring comfort. And we were a little bit mixed on this. My personal opinion, I feel like the traditional Grand American Touring Harley-Davidson is superior in comfort. I personally like the floorboards, feet out in front. You can have a lot more options with bars and things, and I'm sure in the adventure touring world we'll see more options as far as bars. But you know, just available seats, backrests, like rider backrests. I just feel like in a Grand American touring bike right now, the traditional Harley-Davidson, and for passenger as well, we might as well lump these two together. Passenger comfort, if you're going to ride with a passenger on a frequent basis, I think the overall comfort, if I'm doing 400, 500, 600 miles in a day, give me my street glide all day long, as opposed to the adventure touring bike.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. You know, if I was going to choose a cross country trip or something, I think I would be more inclined to use the Road King over my adventure touring bike for sure. The wind coverage, you know, the just the overall comfort, the planted feel of the heavier chassis,
Yep.
and just even the the feel of the lower revving, cruising torque monster of an engine compared to something that's a little more high strung, you know, over a long period of time. It actually kind of fatigues you as well.
You just touched on two things, Jamie, that I really want to highlight. Wind protection, the fairing on a street glide, road glide, whatever you have, is far superior to anything that you can put on the front of an adventure touring bike.
Yes.
And that, when you're going down the highway for a long, prolonged, mileage, that is worth a lot. You know, not having that wind beating you. You also mentioned the hum of the motor, and I think Andrew was talking before we started recording. Maybe it was Nick, I can't remember, but just having that low RPM. You know, you're doing 3,000 RPM, 80 miles an hour in 6th gear on a Milwaukee 8, whereas on the Rev Max, you're winding it out a little bit more, which isn't the end of the world. But
No, not at all.
when you're laying down a lot of mileage, that's just one more factor that, in my opinion, increases that comfort level.
Yeah, it's more of a soothing vibe as you're going down the road. You know, and you feel it's just a different feel once again. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, it's like a lot of the things I would need to do to a bagger to make it a lot more comfortable than a like a Pan Am would require a fair bit of modifications, partly due to my size, with like suspension just being too stiff because I'm just not in like the the operating recommended realm.
So that's one I wanted to highlight as well. We might as well touch on it now. Suspension, obviously the suspension on the Pan America, 7.5 inches is the 2.1 on the specials.
Yeah,
So the suspension's far superior.
Yeah, it affects a whole bunch of different categories from performance to comfort. So suspension's a massive deal on that bike. But everything you guys said, yeah, I mean, if I were doing mostly 400-mile days on my bike, like if my bike was unlimited and it sat there, except for when me and my girlfriend were going on, 3-4 day long adventures, and most of our days were 300 to 600 miles of riding. Oh boy, yeah, the bagger would be hard to pass up because the extra wind protection, the sound system, the more usable storage. Even if you put hard bags on the Pan Am, just to open the bag, you've got to use a key, every single time. There's just quality of life things about the baggers that make them nicer to use overall. Not as, utilitarian in terms of being able to do a whole bunch of different things, but like when it comes to long distance touring, they're the superior bike. In my opinion.
Yeah, I just recently got the top case from Pan America, and I got that little pad as well. And my wife's ridden on the back of my bike a little bit before I had the top case, but she's not going to be as comfortable on the Pan America as she is on my Street Glide, like no question. So if you plan on riding on road a lot of mileage, then the Grand American Touring bike, in my opinion, is the obvious choice. Like you got to go Grand American Touring.
I mean, personally for me, I'm kind of stuck between the two because I've done a lot of distance miles on an adventure bike and on sport bikes as well, or naked bikes, so to speak, where my feet and the ergonomics to that are underneath me. And I started off, I grew up riding dirt bikes and stuff like that, and my sport bikes. Everything I've ever known is my knees are bent, legs underneath me. And going to the Super Tenere and doing long distance on that, that's a familiar, seat position. And then going to a Harley and doing a lot of Harley, or Big Twin, doing a lot of miles on my Street Glide and the Road Glide and a big, touring bike. I kind of got used to that, still kind of missed the position of an adventure bike. But to me, it personally depends on kind of what, how long you're doing, how many miles in a day, what your trip looks like, who you're riding with. I find myself, squirming around a lot on the Road King or any touring bike. I find myself standing up a lot often, standing on the rear pegs, standing up, kind of just, stretching out.
Yeah, you were saying that an argument for the comfort for an adventure touring bike was the fact that you could stand up and like stretch your legs and stuff. And I said, well, what about, highway pegs? For me, I'm a huge believer in highway pegs on my Street Glide. Fan. Yeah, and that's kind of surprised me because, as long as I can change the position of my feet and stretch my legs out, and sometimes I go backwards and use the passenger pegs, that to me stretches my knees out, moves the muscles in my hips and things like that. Yeah. But you said that that's no substitute to being able to stand up.
To use the muscle that have been dormant for 150 miles or so, to be able to stand up to air out your crotch and get up
dry
off
your balls.
Butt. Dry the balls and be able to stand up and air your ass out is huge. And to me personally, it buys me another 20 miles to be able to do it on a tour or adventure touring bike, where the ergonomics is pretty much built for where you can stand up. Your risers are right there. You can still see your gauge. The bike, is a lot more responsive in that position as opposed to a low center of gravity kind of big touring bike where, you have bars on it or something. The bike is, it's heavy, but between the two, I mean, like you said, the heavier chassis works better on long distance.
But I get your point because I really enjoy that feel as well, being a dirt bike rider and all that good stuff. And it's just a natural feel that it's second nature to me.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a more of a commanding position to where, for agility and making quick maneuvers, stuff like that, I do feel more confident on the adventure touring type chassis, just because of that commanding position that you're in, on the bike. But as for long-term for myself, I guess another factor that would be between the two, I feel like I could do some big miles on either platform, but I think the rate of speed that that we're doing those miles, that comes into play too, where I think my Grand Touring chassis is going to be better.
Oh, absolutely.
So rate of speed's another thing.
The 65 mile an hour plus, you like the Road King better?
Yeah, I mean 70, 75 plus. Yeah, I like the Road King better. Anything under that, the adventure touring does really well. It does well. But
it'll blip up to 130, great, but that sustained 75, 80 miles an hour.
Once again, it'll wear you out again. Yeah, for at least for me,
Agreed. I mean, I'm right there with you. I totally agree with 100%.
Yeah.
Nick touched on storage space. I want to just kind of talk about this for a little bit longer. The Grand American Touring bikes, like the saddlebags, the stock saddlebags, we're going to talk about price a little bit, but they come on the bike. They can hold more, I think. Am I right there? The saddlebags hold more than the both say the side cases, the panniers.
I think they're more practical. Yeah. I think you can get more stuff in the soft bags and hard bags potentially.
Nick has the soft bags for his Pan America. I just bought the aluminum side cases. They are really big. We're going to do a video on the different luggage options on the Pan America here in the near future.
I'd rather lane split on the Road King with bags than the Pan America.
They
would
definitely-
Pan America bags are like
It's all just usability for like the advantages, I think, because
convenience.
they're locking. They're extremely easy to open. This is all on the Grand American Touring bikes. And they look better. They're also more narrow, so it's easier to split with them. Maybe not compared to the soft bags on the Pan Am, but certainly compared to the hard bags. The hard bags, I mean, it's like wings coming off the side of the bike. And this is true for pretty much every adventure bike, because on the right side or the left, depending on where they mount the exhaust, like the bracket always for the hard bags, I just think it's like way off, right?
This is huge for us guys that live in California, by the way, because lane splitting is life in California. If you don't live in California, then maybe you don't care about this.
I'll see you guys in the comment section, okay, where you guys are talking about how dumb it is. But okay, and we can get into an argument there. But
another day.
Another day, right?
Tour packs too.
Tour
Grand
pack.
American Touring bikes, the King Tour pack, that is
massive.
a large pack. I mean, it's like
2
class.
helmets.
It's like class leading. You know, there's like no other manufacturer that makes this big of a tour pack.
Yeah,
and it looks good too. You know,
It looks good. It has really good integration with like light functionality. You're not gonna be able to do it as well. I mean, obviously, Jamie spent hours rigging up the police one. Like, you can mount lights to the Pan Am tour pack and do it cleanly, but it's not as seamless as what it is on the baggers, like especially the dressers, where it already comes like that from the factory. But I just think that it's all about ease of use and convenience. The barrel key locking everything and your ignition, not having to lock it to open it or, close it. So just not needing the key. If you're somewhere where the bike's always in sight, like it's really nice to be able to just walk up. They're one touch
just
to
to clarify
open
too,
the
you're talking
latch.
about the Grand American bikes are a lot easier because they
yeah.
have the barrel key, whereas the Pan America bikes are a lot harder to open and close. You need the key. You can't even open them without unlocking them.
Yeah, if you're doing the soft bags, maybe I haven't seen the sport touring bags on the Pan Am, so maybe it's a different story there. But I think capacity is a lot lower at that point than the other two options. But everything on like the adventure bikes, it's like they're designed to take a beating. They're designed to be dropped, tipped over. They have other design considerations than just pure ease of opening and functionality. But even on like, we get on trade, obviously, dresser baggers from other manufacturers, and everyone else's bag designs I just think are garbage. Like, they're just terrible. Like, none of the bags open properly. Like, they just don't feel good.
Don't shut right.
I don't know what it is. I mean,
when you can open your bags, when you can open your bag when you're riding down the highway, like I do often, and grab out a GoPro or whatever, and close it when I'm going down the freeway. That's ease of use right there.
Without even looking, and it's just where it is.
And I don't recommend that, by the way. They're not designed to be operating in when you're actually riding the bike. But on a Pan America, you could never open up the bags when you're en route to your location.
I think that Nick touched upon something really good. There's the intended use, on the adventure touring. I'm sure that those bags are locked every time you're in and out of them for a reason. The jostling, the jumping, the crashes, all the things that can happen, when you're out there venturing, off road and everything.
Being in unfamiliar places.
Yeah, I think you'll be very happy that you locked that every time.
Yeah.
Instead of having things going, flying out everywhere.
That's a good point.
So I'm sure there's a good reason for it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's talk a little bit about electronics too. So on the Grand American Touring bikes, if you have a fairing, you have an infotainment system that is superior to the Pan America. Yes, you have a lot of the same functionality. On the Pan America for music, you got to have your headset. But on the street glides, road glides, and the limited versions of both, you have speakers and you have a GPS that is integrated into the brain of the infotainment system. So if you're a guy that likes his electronics, likes his navigation, makes it a little bit more seamless to use out on the road, the Grand American Touring bikes are far superior in that regard, in my opinion, especially around town too. If you like to bump the music and stuff and have your passenger enjoy it as well, and maybe you like to have some of the people walking by on the sidewalk enjoy your music as well, then I mean, obviously the Grand American Touring bike has a neck up in that category for sure.
I will say, though, while the Grand American Touring does have a significant advantage in electronics for, convenience in terms of navigation and in terms of entertainment, in terms of, sound system, I would say it's a pretty significant step down in terms of, overall sophistication of electronics when it comes to safety and riding dynamics and that kind of stuff. I'm not necessarily advocating for electronic suspension on the baggers. I don't think it's really required. I think just what's on there right now is pretty good.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Needing more suspension travel in the rear, but I know Harley's just in like a weird battle with trying to get the lowest seat height possible and also trying to be able to have the widest number of riders not bottom out the rear suspension. It's a weird, design problem to have. But the overall electronics package is a lot more sophisticated on the Pan Am when it comes to actually riding the bike, in terms of being able to program modes, and they're modes that actually matter, not just the dirt mode, but like going from sport mode to comfort mode on that bike. It's huge. It's huge because, and it's something that actually matters. Like a sport mode on an 800-pound bagger, it doesn't really matter that much. Like, okay, stiffening up the suspension, improving the throttle response, cool. Like, it doesn't matter that much. It's still not going to be like a sporty bike. But like the Pan Am in comfort mode is like a 1960s Cadillac in terms of suspension. It's like wallowing around. It's too soft for anger.
Oh, right? Yeah, dude. Like when I had the 2014 Super Tenere, and it had ES suspension or electronic suspension, and the way to determine and decipher what mode you're in, it showed you one helmet plus luggage, two helmets. You kind of push a couple of buttons and you think it's doing something. I mean, to me, I didn't really notice. It wasn't that drastic right away, but doing the Pan Am, and I kind of let off with you because you had a custom mode where you had sport, throttle with comfort suspension, kind of like a commuting setting. And I tried that out. Yeah, I tried it out. I played with all that, and I realized, dude, comfort is just too soft. Yeah. And then going back into it and like, stiffening it up a little bit. Like I think I used road setting, and then sport throttle and a little bit of engine braking. You can just fine tune all that, and it translates, and you feel it right away. And it's coming from the older technology. Granted, it was in 2014 to this, and actually feeling it, turn and work for you, which is really cool. I think that's
you could make it into a pretty competent track day experience
by
putting on some more road bias tires and sport mode, like those two things, and then going to dirt mode. And now suddenly it's a dirt bike, not like dirt bike, but now it's competent on a, fire road, and, even something that's a little bit more technical than a fire road. I
can't wait till someone tracks out a Pan America.
Yeah. I heard there's something happening like that at some point.
Yeah, that'd be badass.
But I guess, like I was saying, that really matters on the Pan Am, where it is a jack of all trades bike. You need that suspension to really turn it into that jack of all trades bike. With the touring bikes being primarily focused on long distance touring, it's a little bit less important to make them dual personality. But I will just say, going back to electronics, that the Pan Am's actual software for how it rides and how it operates seems to be way more sophisticated.
It is, and I'm glad you brought that up, actually. So let's definitely distinguish the two. So for infotainment, the head unit, infotainment, and audio, the Grand American Touring is better there. But for ride modes, dialing in electronically your engine, your suspension, your braking, your engine braking, all that stuff, you're in the suspension, you're way more sophisticated on the Pan America. So I'm definitely glad you brought that up.
And that translates to the dirt too. The electronic aspect in the dirt was
the off-road mode, and off-road plus.
Nuts.
That dials in the level of ABS intervention as well. So
grab a handful of brake in the dirt is just, from what we know, grabbing front brake in the dirt is just usually something you don't do.
Yeah.
But when we did the Rawhide Adventure, oh my God, dude, huge. I was sold on electronics on that.
Yeah, that was cool to experience. Let's touch on accessories real quick as well, because, as pretty common in the Harley-Davidson world, everyone is all about the accessories and making the bike their own. And so I think we would be amiss if we didn't talk about this a little bit. So Grand American Touring, just the fact that they've been around for so long, there's way more options in the accessory and parts and accessory department that you can get for the Grand American Touring bikes to really, customize it to what you're going for. Seat options, bar options. I mean, there's, backrest options, luggage options. The list is, limitless. I think on the Pan America, we're going to see a lot more in the, the near future here. There's already a lot of aftermarket companies that are making bags for it and things like that. But if you're going for like that style aspect and really outfitting it to fit your ergonomics and body type, you have a lot more options on the Grand American Touring for sure, at this point at least.
Yeah, and that's really important, and that kind of leads into appearance as well. The being able to make the bike look how you want, and also just the general looks of the bike. I mean, I'm of the opinion that pretty much no adventure bike is a beauty queen. I'd say the Pan Am, at least for my taste, is the closest. It has a really nice highlighted motor. I love the way the Rev Maxle looks. I mean, obviously that was a big design consideration for that motor, because they're going to stick it into bikes that aren't the Pan Am, that have to actually be really attractive.
Yeah. Like the Sportster.
Yeah, like the Sportster, and you know, if they build a Bronx of some sort, the Cafe Racer Leak thing, which who knows if that's legit or not, but like, the motor has to look good. So the motor looks good. It's highlighted. I think it's got a really clean, industrial looking design. But like, I mean, sitting next to like a Street Glide Special or Road Glide Special, I mean, obviously it's atrocious looking compared to that.
The Pan Am is a tool. The Pan Am is a tool that a big touring bike, or the Grand American Touring, is more of an extension of oneself.
I liked your quote the best, Andrew. You say you've never seen a guy roll up on bike night on an adventure touring bike before. Like,
I was just going to mention that you don't see a guy lining up at a bike show, polishing his adventure bike, trying to make it look as good as it can be, right? And I'm sure it may happen out there, but more often than not, you're going to see somebody decking out their awesome,
absolutely,
their awesome, Road King or their Street Glide, whatever it may be, and just polishing that sucker up and that's where I'm at too. If I had to choose on looks, I mean, hands down, no question. I would take my Road King in a second. In fact, I mean, my particular adventure touring bike, I think they're ugly as could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jamie's got a KTM 890.
You put it out there.
Yeah. Of course.
It looks to me, it looks like a praying mantis or something. The front end of it, but I do love it though. I love it for what it is. I'm not dogging on it. I do enjoy it. But
I think
talk about that, Jimmy. Why did you go with KTM?
Well, for me, there's a couple points for it, but one of them was honestly cost right now for me, because I had to go with a little cheaper setup. I was going to buy something used, and then I'm like, well, I could get in one of these somewhat comfortable. The main reason is because I spent the money recently on my brand new Road King, which, like I said, I'm not going to part with that just to get anything else. Mm-hmm. But if I did not purchase the Road King, I would be with probably Nick on the Pan America, or you guys actually, sorry, on the Pan America. Yeah. But I'm glad it worked out the way it did, because I'm lucky enough to have both. And after having my Road King right now, I just wouldn't part with it. I really enjoy it.
Yeah. So price is definitely a factor. And
price.
It fit you better too, right? It was kind of one of the considerations. Yeah,
a little bit better. I'm obviously a small guy. So the bike itself it's actually a little bit lower. I got to be honest though, the Pan America, with the adaptive suspension, the adaptive ride height, and the low seat, actually feels maybe the same or possibly a little more comfortable than my bike now.
How tall are you, Jamie?
Just for 5'6".
Okay, so at 5'6", you could ride the Pan America, but you
easily. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, and the difference too is the KTM is actually wide. The seating area is wide, so that's kind of the worst thing for short guys.
Yeah.
First of all, you have a shorter inseam, and then you give them a wide platform to sit on, and your legs just kind of splay out sideways, Yeah.
But it's 100 pounds lighter too, right? The KTM.
Yeah, so that was the other factor, So we have that. We have, the size of it overall, it is a bit smaller. The weight, and then of course the cost, since I just made the other big purchase. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about price, since Jamie threw it out there. So the Pan America the special starts at $20,000. We haven't even sold the standard yet. Everybody seems to want the special.
Oh, for sure.
The value's there. I mean, if you can afford the special, like the special's the better deal. It's more expensive, but everything that you want on there, everything that it comes with, is stuff you're going to be adding anyways. So,
absolutely. Brush guards, hand guards, center stands, heated grips.
The electronic suspension is massive.
Huge. Daymaker.
The adaptive daymaker. You got the steering damper, the Öhlins steering. It's all there. It's good.
The wheels, you can get the option of the wheels as well, and the adaptive ride height option as well.
Which that's like one of the biggest selling points for the Pan Am. Is just so many of the customers want that adaptive ride height.
Yeah, and it was always a big question, like whether or not this was really going to work. It was cool on paper, but after riding it, like I can save 100%. And I'm 6'6", so I don't really need it. My Pan America doesn't have it, but I could definitely feel that bike drop. When it came to a stop, and I'm sure you guys can attest that.
It makes it easy for me to ride.
Yeah. So that's a huge game changer in the adventure touring world. But so price, once you get the adaptive ride height and the wheels on there, you're about 21.5. you add, the bags and everything. The bags are, what are the side panniers for that thing? They're like,
I think it's probably close to $2,000 for all of the hard bag and mounting hardware and the bags themselves, and labor. It's probably going to be right around there. Parts wise alone, it's probably like $1,500 to $1,800 for the parts on all those. And then if you do soft bags, I think you can get everything that the soft bags require for about $1,000.
So you're, if you do the hard aluminum bags, you're at about $23,500, with all of them installed, which is about the price of a Street Glide standard or a Road Glide standard.
With RDRS at least.
With RDRS, yeah. You're kind of there where it's a little bit of, an even playing field, and you really have to ask yourself, okay, which one is going to suit my riding needs better? Most people go with the special, which now we're talking about almost $28,000, with RDRS. And so that's where you get the 114. Price obviously is something you should definitely consider. I feel like the value of the Pan America and what you can use that bike for, per use case, I feel like the Pan America ekes out a little bit.
Yeah, the utility is one of those things that's hard to, I think that Harleys have never been a particularly good value utility-wise. Like, you've got to really appreciate the fit and finish, the feel, the character. Like, they've never been spec sheet bikes. Like, we've talked about this before. Like, if you're looking at it from a spec sheet perspective, you're going to be confused as to what is there. And then you see the bike in person, you're like, okay, well, this is like a beautiful piece of art. But the Pan Am isn't that beautiful piece of art. It's got a plastic fender. It's, going for lightweight. It's a utilitarian thing. So the value has to be there. And so it's not surprising to say that it's a much better value than the Street Glide from a utilitarian perspective of what it can do and what it comes with.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up and really broke it down utility wise. Let's talk real quick about Riding Network. And I think Jamie brought this up. A lot of times people have friends that ride, and it's very rare that you'd go out there and buy an adventure touring bike if you're the only one in your network of friends that have that bike. It seems like all four of us in this room bought Pan Americas within the last 6 months. And so it was funny how, I think I got mine first, and then Nick bought his.
You really pushed me over the edge. I don't appreciate that.
As soon as I bought it, you were like, no, I'm going to pay off the Road King. And then 2 days later, he's like, run my credit.
I was like, all right, moto camping. I mean, that trip really did it for me. Yep. I don't know about
the Death Valley trip.
Yeah, dude. It was the fact that we were only about 25 yards from the highway.
And we got stuck.
I'm like, and me and Jamie, actually, I pulled you aside. I'm like, imagine if we all had Pan America.
Yeah, how much further we could go.
We're like 3 miles in the desert, dude. No one around.
We may have not gone to sleep that night. We may have just rode all night in the desert.
And these are really, not me, but you guys are all pretty darn good dirt riders. And you guys all got stuck 25 feet in.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing you can do about a Road King and sand.
All the skill, all the skill in the world, cannot compensate for sand. Yeah,
800-pound anchor. It's going to sink. Yeah.
I don't care if you're Travis Pastrana, you're not going anywhere.
Absolutely, dude.
You're gonna buy bikes that your friends have. If your friends all ride to the Neptune's Net or the Rock Store on Sunday on their lowriders and their Road Kings or whatever, their Road Glides, chances are you're going to be more happy on that type of bike. I don't think you're going to be like, hey guys, wait here. I'm going to go catch this dirt trail real quick. I'll see you guys in 10. I mean, it just doesn't happen like that. So your network is important. And it seems kind of silly, but that's actually a question I ask customers out on the showroom floor a lot too, is like, do you have friends that you ride with? Do you have friends that you plan on riding? What bikes do they have? A guy who's coming in to buy a Sportster, but his friends all ride Road Glides. It's like, bro, no, you're not gonna. Yeah, you're not gonna enjoy yourself. You're gonna be holding everybody up. They're gonna be doing 80 while you're white knuckling to do 80 out on the highway and with just 5 speeds.
Or you're at a gas station because you have a 48.
Yeah, because you have 2 gallons of gas. Yeah,
been there.
Then you're doing 120 to try to catch them if they didn't stop.
I think another factor is the age group that you're in. And also if you're an enthusiast, you kind of want to. If you're lucky enough, you kind of want to almost own them all and experience them all.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Every genre.
At least at some, not at the same time.
Which is why we all have 2 bikes at this point.
Yeah. But, at some point in your life, though, it's like the evolution of getting to the ultimate bike that you want, but it's going to change with, like you said, your riding buddies, your age, and your interest. And those are ever changing, hopefully, because otherwise life might be a little too boring, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So that's why I love having my Sportster. I don't regret any bike that I've ever owned. Mm-hmm. I'm actually very happy, that I've had all these different bikes. I'm lucky enough to experience that.
When your Sportster is a little different than most Sportsters, let's be honest.
Yeah,
A souped up
it was a great starter
Roadster.
bike.
Oh yeah, hell of a commuter.
Got the hammer kit and the Sportster,
Yeah.
the
On
the flip
Roadster
side,
with the suspension.
If your friends are like, if you have multiple groups of friends and they all have different bikes, you've got, guys who like, naked sport bikes, and you've got other guys that all have, baggers. If you get a Pan Am, you
Do
can
both.
basically do anything,
Right.
You know, and so that's one of the beauties of the adventure bike is, if your friends don't have a consistent group of bikes and they don't all ride together, and you just ride with a few of them here and there at different times, then you want one bike to rule them all, then the Pan Am's kind of a good answer.
Yeah, you can kind of just be the redheaded stepchild of every group you ride with,
Yeah.
as opposed to being the shunned, uncle that doesn't get invited to anything.
Exactly.
But you're able to do every aspect,
Yeah.
which is cool.
Yeah. So let's kind of end with our final thoughts. And obviously the premise of this video was to help people decide if they're between the two, which one they should buy based on their riding habits and their personality and things like that. And me personally, obviously I'm fortunate enough to have two bikes at this point, so I have the best of both worlds. But for me personally, just because most of my riding is on highway, doing my commute is 65 miles just to get to work, so it's 130 miles in one day, mostly freeway. And the rides we go on are mostly, at this point, mostly highway. Hopefully we'll change that with some dirt here really,
Off-highway.
really
That's
soon.
the plan.
But for me personally, and I ride with my wife, and obviously I favor a lot of space. In spite of the fact that I bought a chopped tour pack, I favor a lot of space. And so Grand American Touring for me would be my first choice. It's awesome that I have a Pan America at this point, because hopefully we can do more of the dirt. But that's kind of where I'm at in the whole scheme of things. Where you guys weigh in?
It's kind of hard for me to say too, because I own both. And if you were to ask me to give up one, I'd give up the Pan Am. Mainly why I got the Pan Am is, for one, I mean, it's a great commuter. But you guys, it's all of you guys. If none of you had adventure bikes, I probably wouldn't have got it and got another Dyna. I couldn't see myself giving up a traditional big twin, for a Pan America or any other bike. Like I said in the beginning, the way a big twin revs your heart, the characteristic of that motor, the sound, everything about it is just so classic to me, growing up with it in my family and stuff like that. Really love, the traditional pushrod V-twin.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I mean, you guys were all getting Pan Americas. I mean, Matt says it a lot, the honeymoon phase with the Pan America. So like, it's the best thing on earth right now. And and to me, it is. A big thing to me is who I ride with and what they ride.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully my opinion changes. Hopefully, in the next year, and we've already got some trips planned. Hopefully after 2022, I'll say, you know what? If I had to keep one bike, it'd be the Pan America. Yeah. Hopefully I get into, the dirt and the places you can go in the dirt, a lot more, but we'll see. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Jamie?
I'm in a similar boat as Andrew. My heart is with my Road King. And I would not have bought the adventure bike if I didn't have you guys, getting into this category as well. And even then, on top of that, I still wouldn't have bought it if I didn't myself have the intended use of actually using it what it's capable of. We know it's capable of just about everything, but I want to do the intended use of going off road than just staying to the highways. Yeah, it's a tough decision, but I think I would stick with my Road King for now. But like I said, I'm lucky enough to have both. I'm very thankful for that. And there's good things to come. And like Matt said, same thing is if we start doing a bunch of off-road adventures. When we So when we start doing that, the rush that I get being off-road, off the grid, and enjoying everything outdoors, my mind would probably change rather quickly.
Dude, I'm the same, because I mean, you may go back to on-road only and be like, wow, I just don't get the thrill. It's like going from marijuana to crack cocaine. Once you get that harder drug, you might not be able to go to the light stuff.
It's not doing it for you.
I'm not a drug user, by the way. What's your thoughts, Nick?
So I've already made the jump to being big twinless. It's funny because actually the same trip that we took to go test ride the bike, the Pan Am that is, and the other adventure bikes that Harley had brought around so we would know and have experienced the competitors. I was on my lowrider, but it was like basically bone stock at that point. I think all I had was the LePera seat on it. And on the ride home, I was wishing I was on the Pan Am.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, it was meant to be, dude.
I tried to buy
But
the
you were
Pan
on a
Am.
lowrider S. So
I was on a lowrider S.
So let's.
Then I customized
clarify
it
that.
up, and
Beautiful bike, by the way.
And by the time I had it all customized and set up with the bags and the bars and got it comfortable for me, like, you know, for actual on-road commuting, like, they're fungible in terms of comfort to me. But there's something about the Pan Am for me.
It does it all for you.
Oh my God, that bike.
He had to shut up about it.
You favor performance a lot, though.
I do.
Yeah.
I
So
do. So like, there's something about like being able to downshift and just go, like just go. Like you and John were doing a little highway pole on one of the rides in Mexico,
standing still.
and like they're having their little pole race thing, and I'm just riding around it, like it's not even happening. You know?
Watching you two guys on the Pan America just buzz past everybody like we're standing still. That made my interest peak even more. I was like, oh my gosh, look what those bikes are capable of.
It's just not even just like power is obviously a big aspect of it, but I just love how much front brake I can just grab at random at will and just huge. Know that it's gonna have the anti-dive suspension, so it's just gonna be planned. Like that is a very special bike to me. I don't think about my lowrider S at all. I mean, I love a big twin, and the one thing that I will say, I'm sure I'll be at my dad's house swapping for the FXR when I start jonesing for a.
That's the big twin. Right?
Yeah, right. When I start jonesing for something that it takes a couple seconds to fire up because you gotta you
gotta choke it.
Yeah. Like when I want that character, because that is something that's irreplaceable and does not exist on the Pan Am. It's got a really cool character because I love double overhead can V twins as well, but it's not a traditional Harley big twin. So yeah, the Pan Am, I'm fully on board that train. That train has left the station, and I'm loving it.
So hopefully, guys, you can take this criteria and just run through it real quick. Storage space, Grand American Touring, pure highway comfort. I think we're pretty much unanimous on Grand American Touring. Styling, Grand American Touring. Infotainment and stereo, Grand American Touring. But ride modes and suspension and that type of electronic, definitely Pan America. Performance, hands down, Pan America. Passenger combinations is Grand American Touring. Accessories, Grand American Touring. Character, I feel like we give that to the Grand American Touring as well. Utility, by far Pan America. Just your ability to ride different places, experience different things, Pan America. Suspension, Pan America. And then, obviously your riding network is a big one that's a little bit of a variable. But yeah, it's tough. Let me know in the comment section below, guys. What do you prefer? What do you ride right now? And if you ride just a traditional Grand American Touring Harley-Davidson, are you interested in riding the Adventure Touring? And if so, why is that? But let me know what your guys' opinions are. If you ride both of them, which of them do you prefer? Are you excited about Harley-Davidson really getting in, 2 feet into the Adventure Touring bike world? Let me know what your guys' thoughts are.
The outfits for Grand American Touring are, depending on how far you go, I think more fashionable than the suits that exist for
the space suits.
Yeah. Something needs to be done in that direction.
I'm a proud owner of a spacesuit.
Yeah,
it's funny. Like,
purpose built.
Yeah.
The more that
Just like the bike.
The more I look at them, the more I'm like,
Exactly.
this looks like I could definitely roll up to my local Starbucks and go inside and have some coffee.
Needless to say, when we do a few of our off-road adventures, I have a feeling you and I, being the shorter guys, are probably going to sample some dirt ourselves and see how that gear holds up. And I think you'll appreciate it more then.
Yeah,
I think all of us will sample some dirt.
I know I will.
I will for sure as well.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. And like I said, if you have any questions or anything you feel like we missed, make sure you leave those comments in the comment section below. We'll be sure to try to get back to you and answer them. And I definitely look forward to the rides we're going to be doing in 2022 on the Adventure Touring bike. Let me know too, guys. Are you guys excited about seeing some Adventure Touring bike and off-road content? Or are you like, no, we just want pure Harley-Davidson, Grand American Touring, Big Twin, Milwaukee 8 content? Let me know what you guys think, because obviously we're here to entertain you guys. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Take care. Thanks for being here, guys.